Welcome, everyone. My name is Mandy Hungerland. I'm the COO here at Dead Ringers. Thank you for joining us to discuss every death care professional's favorite topic. I'm just kidding. This may be Paul's favorite topic, but it's one that kind of causes a lot of anxiety and stress for the rest of us. So we're here to assuage some of those anxieties and equip you and your teams to navigate FTC Funeral Rule compliance with accuracy and a little bit of artfulness. And so, because this is not the most thrilling topic, but it certainly is a pressing one, I have none other than Dead Ringers founder and our resident FTC expert here to guide us through the FTC Funeral Rule 2025 updates. And we'll do some question and answers too. Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, thanks, Mandy. And I will agree with Mandy. Anytime the attorney is happy about something, typically that's horrible for everybody else. So when the attorney gets excited, it's a really probably bad subject. No, seriously, it frustrates me as much as it does you. I'm no fan of this, but it is what we have. We have to learn to live with it. And that's why we're going to update. So many of you probably know me. If you don't, I am Poul Lemasters. And I have been in death care for over 30 some odd years now. And I've been working with and training FTC for almost all of those years. And we've had a lot going on lately through this and through Dead Ringers. And so, yeah, let's kind of get caught up on everything, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Paul, for being here. I know that the attendees appreciate your availability to give us the lowdown on FTC updates and questions. Before we dive in, if you're watching this and you have an FTC related question, please post that. Just click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. That's going to open up a little pop-up where you can post your questions. Don't be shy with asking these questions. If we don't get it before the end of the webinar, we will still answer questions via email or something to make sure you get the responses that you need. Now, Paul, let's
Yes.
start with the big question of 2025, and that is, what's new? What's changed?
Okay. So, it's funny because what a lot of you don't realize is obviously Mandy and I talk, and we're not winging all of this, but some of this we have to wing because things change. And right now, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but DC's a little squirrely right now. There's a lot of things happening, like literally every day.
Mhm.
And if you sat there and wondered, I wonder if there could be an executive order written by the president that could affect me. Well, wait no longer. It has happened.
Mhm.
So just the other day, executive order signed by the president. That's how those work, in case you're wondering. He wrote an executive order that said, going forward, all independent agencies were no longer allowed to modify or create rules without the approval of the White House. What does that mean? So when we talk about independent agencies, what we're talking about are things like the SEC or the FCC, and yeah, one more three letter, the FTC. So all of those are actually independent agencies. And typically what they do is we are going through a rulemaking process. They go through this and then the FTC, say, here's what we're going to do going forward. Well, now what we just had happen is the White House has said, no, from now on, before you publish it, before you put that out, the White House, through the president and or the attorney general, we have to approve it first because we don't want any wasted money on all of this stuff going out there if it's not anything practical. Now, here's the issue. I'm not going to spend a whole show talking about executive orders, but the president has pretty broad power when it comes to executive orders. The problem is that the White House and the president, they can't override statutes. We're in a dilemma right now. As much as the president is saying, hey, from now on, anything that you put out, we have to approve it. There's actually law, there are statutes that specifically say that these independent agencies, like the FTC, they absolutely are allowed to do this rulemaking without the president being involved. That's the whole intention and purpose. So he can't write over top of laws. So what does it mean? It means we have a mess. I mean, if you've been paying attention to executive orders, half of them are being challenged by the courts. This one looks like it could go to the court. However, there is one more little mix-up that I have to tell you about, and that is Andrew Ferguson, who is now the chairperson of the FTC Commission. Remember, there's 5 commissioners, and he is the chair right now. He actually wants to have the White House involved. He's Republican, so don't know how this is going to play out. What do we know that's going to happen? Probably continued oversight. And here's what I mean: what the FTC can do, and let's be clear, this executive order was probably meant a little bit more for SEC and FCC, but we don't know that. But what we do know is the FTC still has the power to regulate what they do. That means they can still shop us. They can
Mhm.
still try to prove that this rule is necessary. And for me, that's where I see this headed. Is I could see that the staff, the people that do the day to day, unless they all get fired, they are going to potentially make a point and say the rule needs to be updated and look at all these violations. And we'll talk about those a little bit. So that's kind of the big thing that just happened. Now, there is one more thing, and this was the new thing I was going to tell you about. So if you're like, man, I hope this doesn't cost much money, no, it's gone up again. So every year it automatically adjusts. So if you just get used to the $51,744 number, erase it. It's now $53,088 per violation. You're welcome. I get a heart for that. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Loves fines.
Paul, that is a really scary number. And we know that these issues are not just they happen once upon a time and they don't happen anymore. We all do this perfectly now. Can we talk a little bit about recurring issues when it comes to handling the phone in a way that is compliant with the FTC Funeral Rule? Because there seems to be questions on, can I do price ranges? Can I do estimates? Can I do packages? Can you explain when and what a provider needs to say?
Yeah, I mean, call it what it is. It's the $1 million. No, it's the $53,088 question of,
Yep.
what can we say and what can't you say? Um, Look, I think what we have to do is take a step back because I know there is a lot of confusion when it comes to packages and prices and estimates and what do I say, what I can't say. So it's a great question. Here's what the FTC wants, and this is where they start. The FTC, they want price information from providers that is basically, these are the 3 key words: specificity, specificity. It's a tough word. I don't even like it. Specificity, completeness, and accuracy. So that's what they're looking for. They want specific, complete, accurate information provided to anybody that's calling. What they don't want, what they don't want are, and this is their language, this is right out of their report. What they don't want are just giving price ranges. They don't want estimated or approximate pricing, package pricing, inconsistent pricing, um, and price quotes that omit certain costs. Now, I just said a lot of things where like, wait, so we can't say those things? Like, I can't. This is kind of the confusing part. So here's how I've gone about doing this. I believe that what you have to kind of learn is how to evaluate a question first analysis. That's kind of the step we have to do. Question first analysis.
Paul, explain what a question first analysis means to you.
Yeah. So a lot of people probably don't know it because I've just made it up. But here's what I mean by it. So the idea is really when we are called, by anybody, break the possible questions up into 2 categories. You're either going to get a very broad question or a very specific question. And of those 2 questions, if it's a broad question, then you have a lot more flexibility to give that broad answer, that estimate, that range, all of those types of things. However, once we either start or we get that specific question, then we're kind of done. Now we have to go to that specific, complete, accurate answer. Let me give you the examples in that I think it'll help. So consider a very broad question. Somebody calls up and they say, hey, I'm calling because I'm trying to figure out how much does a funeral cost. Well, how much does a funeral cost is a very broad question. And you really can't even give them a specific thing. You can't say, oh, a funeral? Oh, that is $8,432 and 12 cents. That's what we charge. I mean, that's not a thing. So that broad question, you can sit there and say, well, actually, we have funerals that range from $900 to $19,000, and then it's up to you to kind of get more answers from them to say, can I ask what type of funeral that you are thinking so I can help guide you to a more descriptive price? So, as a professional, that's how you have to work that. Now, here's the problem. Compare that to this question. Somebody calls up and says, how much is a cremation without any service? So the problem now is that is a specific question. You may want to hear that as broad. Oh, they want to know how much cremation can cost. No, they have specifically said how much is a cremation without any service. That's a direct cremation. And that is one of the questions that the FTC asked. And when they ask that, there's really no real room to guess or estimate or give ranges. On that one, your answer should be, oh, our cremation without any service is $900. By the way, for purposes of this program, I'm making up numbers. I don't know if you're $900. I don't know what your prices are. And then so let me go back. The answer would be, oh, our cremation without any services is $900. And it includes the following items. And then you would list what it includes. Transfer to the funeral home, the cremation fee, storage, whatever is included. And equally as important, you probably want to say now, just so you understand, there are a few items that doesn't include that you would also probably need to consider, such as a cremation container, death certificates, whatever isn't part of that. And that's where it gets really important. So I have to give a quick disclosure, just like the FCC does, and that is everything I'm about to tell you and give you will help you comply with the FTC, but that's not what this is all about. I want to make sure I'm not giving you all this so you can say, oh, now I know exactly what to say and I'll never get in trouble with the FTC. No, the whole point of this is if you do it right, you will appease and do great with all of your customers. The byproduct is you won't get in trouble with the FTC. But saying that, I also tell you this about the FTC. When they ask their question, what they told us in their report is they typically would follow up with questions to say things like, what does this price include? I mean, talk about leading the witness. I mean, they're they're giving you, hey, you need to tell me what's included in this. So they're giving you the opportunity. They also asked, does this price include the death certificate? Does this price include any flowers or food? Because one of the other questions they would ask is, how much is a cremation with a viewing? And then the other one that we know that they were asking was, are there any additional fees that we need to be aware of? So they're giving you all the opportunities to answer these specific questions.
Paul, let's rewind just a little bit. When giving pricing, are packages okay?
Yeah. So again, now I just told you in one hand, hey, stay away from packages unless it's a broad question. But now, can you talk about packages? And yes, absolutely. So if somebody says, I want a cremation with a viewing, that could be, you could say, oh my gosh, we have a package for that. But here's the trick. You can't just give them the package and say, yep, we have a package. It's, $905. What you need to do is when you give them that package, you really need to also be able to identify what's included in that package and enough information, again, specific, complete, and accurate, so that they could see that and obtain that just like you can from your general price list. So packages are good. Just remember, you have to still give them any additional information so that they have the full picture. And that's where people, I think, have gotten in trouble.
Yes. And what can providers be doing to prepare so that they're ready for those phone calls that are coming in?
Um, so here's a few things. Um, I'm going to add, I have three actually. So the first thing is listen. All right. So you prepare. So before you even answer the phone, man, I sound like Nikki now. Uh, Nikki always talks about this. You have to actually be in the right mindset. So before you ever answer the phone, be ready to listen because you want to understand, all right, am I getting asked a general question or am I being asked a specific question? And then that need goes into the second thing. Know your prices. My goodness, we are professionals. You should know every price on your GPL, and you should be ready to explain it. Again, I'm not giving you like this perfect script so you know, oh my God, that's the FTC. But here's what we know about the FTC. When they called, here were the questions they asked to start. They wanted to know the price of a direct cremation. They wanted to know the price of a cremation with a memorial service, or they would ask for the price of a cremation with the viewing. So if you're going to sit and get all on the same page, let's start with those three things. Like, let's make sure we know what those prices are. And then we want to make sure that we know since cremation, and look, this is a win win. The most common question people aren't calling funeral homes to find out how much all the caskets are, right? They're calling almost all the time for cremation. So by knowing your cremation packages and again what you offer, what's included and what's not included, and what additional items, when you know all that, you're going to make every consumer and customer call satisfied, and then you're also going to be safe with the FTC. So knowing prices, um, and the other thing on it, knowing prices is it'll avoid inaccurate pricing information. And that was another big takeaway from the FTC. A lot of people get in trouble because somebody would call and say, how much is cremation without a viewing? One person would say X, and then they would call back later and say, hey, how much is cremation without a viewing? And then somebody would give a different price because maybe they included something that somebody else didn't. Well, those are inaccurate prices. And if it was more than $200, they were like, okay, that's a violation. So by knowing cremation and by training and all that, and have those answers, you will avoid that inaccurate. Number three, last one I'm going to give you for right now is after hours. If you can prepare, again, the FTC, they literally gave us the report. We know exactly what they shopped and we saw what the big issues were. One of the biggest issues the FTC had was after hours. They got very few accurate responses. They got very incomplete information after hours. So the question becomes this: what are you doing? Do you have a plan? How do you handle pricing after hours? Look, we're a business. You know you're going to get calls. We also know it could be the FTC. So have a plan either with your directors, with your whoever is answering your phone, answering service. I've talked about this before. The fact that we hide our answering service, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. First of all, nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. I do not believe you're answering your phone all by yourself 24 hours a day. We know you got an answering service. It's okay. Consumers know it too. So if you allow your answering service to say, "I'm sorry, this is the answering service. Can I put you in touch with a director?" Now it falls right back onto you. So that's one solution. There are others, but have a plan for after hours.
Okay. Um, Once again, if you're watching this and you have questions about anything that we're covering, because we're covering kind of a broad scope of information today, make sure that you're typing your questions into the Q&A session because we will be going over those very shortly. Now, Paul, thank you for those tips on what providers should be doing, but I'm sure that there are some things that we should be avoiding also. Can you go over some of those too?
My favorite. Yeah. What do we avoid? So if I could give you one big thing, That's avoid certain phrases. These are actually hilarious. We've heard them ourselves with dead ringers. So this isn't, I know this isn't made up, but
Yeah.
avoid words like, this is just a guess, or I'm guessing on what the cost would be. Uh, don't say hey, I can give you a ballpark on what it's going to cost you. Um, and then my other favorite is, well, I don't really know our prices that well. So, like any of those items, combination thereof, or anything similar, you need to avoid those. You need to get them out because as soon as you say those are triggers. Those are red flags, and you're going to get marked. So again, you're the professional. And again, avoid broad questions. Now, let me say this. You can't control the question that they ask to start, but you can control it as a professional going forward. So you have to learn and train how to go from the broad to the specific. Because by doing that, you're going to satisfy the consumer, and then you're also going to satisfy the FTC.
Okay. One last question before we start opening it up for Q&A.
Yes.
Can we talk discounts? Are discounts okay?
Everybody loves a discount. Um, Actually, that's not true. And we can have a whole debate on, do you offer discounts? Do you not offer discounts? So here's the discount I want to talk about. Let me give you the answer. First of all, discounts are fine. You're allowed to have them. There are a lot of different reasons you would have a discount. Some people discount actually cremation off of their basic service fee. That's fine. That's approved. Some people discount certain packages. Again, there's some finessing in there. Here's the big thing when it comes to discounts. Um, you just need to make sure that everybody in your business understands what the discount is, how it works, how it's calculated and applied. Because the problem is if everybody isn't using it the same way or offering it the same way, you're going to end up with inaccurate prices. And we know that's one of the things that the FTC is looking at. So I'm going to just say, for purposes of today, discounts are okay, but it's how you deliver it and making sure that we do it uniformly. That is probably the bigger issue. So
Awesome. Awesome. Now, before we go any further, this seems like a great place for a commercial break. So we're going to play a short video. We'll be back in just a moment. And while we're doing that, this is your last shot. Go ahead and put those questions in the Q&A section because we will be covering those next. Stay tuned.
We help funeral homes avoid scary FTC fines.
Did you know that answering your phone could cost you $53,000? Yikes! That's why we prepare your firm before it costs you big. Our on-demand FTC course is designed to equip your team to navigate compliance with confidence.
This course features deathcare experts who know their stuff. FTC phone audits screen your calls for funeral rule violations.
We'll address issues before they lead to hefty fines. Try GPL review by deathcare attorney Poul Lemasters.
His expertise will rectify compliance issues so you can have absolute confidence in your GPL. Live workshops are where we'll drill for skill.
Your team will be equipped to tackle any challenge that comes their way.
Rest assured, working with us won't cost anything close to that $50K FTC fine.
Dead Ringers is here for all your FTC needs.
Let's ensure an FTC fine-free future.
Okay.
we get the best sponsors for our shows, right?
We do. We do.
That's a great. They're fantastic.
Yeah, Dead Ringers is pretty cool. Well, all right, we are back, and it is time to address questions, and we have quite a few of them. And it's definitely a hot topic. Not everybody's favorite, but one that's very important. And so we'll try to get through as many questions as we can in our remaining few minutes. If we don't get to yours, we will respond via email. Make sure you have all the answers that you need. So our first question, Paul, violations from the FTC. No one wants to be on that list, but can you be reported by someone for failing, or can you turn in someone for not giving out their prices?
Oh boy. All right. So there's two parts to that. Can you be recorded? Short answer is probably. Now there's a lot of laws. We actually are going to have a program coming out in the near future in the C Expertise Library to give you all the details, one party versus two party states, all that. So the most people, yeah, let's just say you can. But let's go to the bigger one. Can you turn somebody in? First of all, I'm going to throw my personal belief in here. Don't. I mean, come on. I mean, it stinks for everybody. And here's the worst part. I know some really great providers that have gotten caught up in this. So for everybody who, I'll say, intentionally does it wrong, there are probably 100 that will accidentally do it wrong. So I would say why, but can you do it? Let me beat now the legal answer. Can you turn somebody in for a violation that you believe is occurring? Yeah, actually, the FTC has a place, a site, a web page, and it says, if you believe a provider is not, properly doing this, they have a website. It's reportfraud.ftc.gov, and you can turn them in. Now, what's going to happen? Honestly, probably nothing, because the FTC doesn't really have specific police power over just one individual from a complaint. Like they can't say, hey, somebody turned you in, we would like to. It doesn't work like that. Could that firm end up on the audit and maybe they get shopped? Yeah, they might, but be careful because the FTC so far and historically has never gone to one city and shopped one location. So that means if you turn somebody in, maybe you really go after them and say they're horrible, and they say, you know what, they're from whatever, Cincinnati. You know what, let's just shop all of Cincinnati and let's see who is doing it right. So you could be putting yourself into the mix. So I don't like it. There are other ways too. The FTC will tell you contact your local state attorney general's office, contact your regulatory board. So these are all options and avenues. Again, short answer, yes, you can do it. And let's be clear, I handle a lot of regulatory matters. The most common regulatory complaint is typically from a competitor. So it does happen. Not my favorite thing, but yes, you can do it.
Okay. All right. Stephen is asking, are you required to hand out a GPL at a pre-need event like a lunch and learn?
I don't know who this Steven is, but I'm going to take a wild guess here and say, I bet you just had a birthday. Happy birthday. Yes. So lunch and learn. This is a great question. So this is a very popular thing. If you're not familiar, it's when you decide to host an event and you may do it at your location or you may do it somewhere and cater lunch and you talk about pre-need. And then the question is, if I'm talking about pre-need, do I have to give out prices, especially if I do it? The short answer is probably not. And the reason is they have chosen to come to you to sit inside this. So again, this is broad information. And even if you share some prices, you aren't obligated to just give out all of your prices because they aren't there asking for pricing. You're sharing what you want. Here's a little bit of the caveat. If the program is over and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I'm really interested, can you tell me how much a cremation is at your place, or do you offer? If you now engage in further conversation and you're getting specific one-on-one, you're probably a lot closer now to having to give that out. What I tell people is if you're at a lunch and learn, why wouldn't you bring your general price list, have it? You don't need to do anything with it during the program, but you might want to offer it to people after the program. And then if anybody does come up and say, hey, I have some questions about what you offer, you say, yeah, here you go. How else can I answer your question?
Awesome. We are already at 3:30, but I think we can knock out a couple more questions if people are willing to stay on. If you have to hop off, that is okay. Brittany
Andy,
just
does the
sorry.
hopping off apply to me too? Can I leave now?
No, I need you because I don't know the answers to all these questions.
No, we're good. Let's do some more.
All right. Brittany asked if you could just repeat what are the 3 things that the FTC is shopping for?
Yeah. The 3 things that we typically know they're going to shop for are direct cremation, and some of the calls, it sounds like they have also called that cremation without any services, cremation with a memorial service, and then the last one is cremation with a viewing.
Awesome. Shannon, has the FTC started to regulate alkaline hydrolysis on the general price list?
So no. So that's one, it's a great question, and not composting, but I can go even further back. They don't even regulate urns on the price list. So if you've ever wondered why we have a outer burial container price list and we have a casket price list, but there's no real urn price list, all of these things kind of came in after the FTC funeral was written. Now, saying all that, what you just mentioned, alkaline hydrolysis, this is absolutely one of the questions that is being decided, so we believe, during this potential update is, do they need to update it to start including things like alkaline hydrolysis and what have you?
Okay, awesome. Christine has a great question. Does the FTC, when they're shopping, only ask for at-need pricing, or do they ask for pre-need pricing?
First, the FTC funeral rule applies to at-need and pre-need, so it doesn't matter. They actually, their questions are typically laid out that they're kind of vague, so you can't tell if it is an at-need or a pre-need situation or an imminent death. But again, it shouldn't matter, because if they specifically call and say, "Hey, I want to get some pre-need pricing and cremation," funeral rule kicks in. If they call and say, "Hey, mom just died, we need a price for an at need right now," boom, it still kicks in. So it really ultimately doesn't matter if it's at need or pre-need.
Okay, awesome. Lee asked a question, and this actually excites me because it's something that we teach on often. Are we allowed to create a telephone price cheat sheet that lists direct cremation pricing as well as cremation with memorial service and cremation with visitation so that we're prepared?
Please, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'd love it. Look, not that it's regularly the same, but look, when waiters, waitresses, you go to a restaurant, a lot of times you'll see them, they'll flip open, "Hey, what specials?" Boom, they flip it open and they have it and they read it. I'm not offended by that. I would rather get accurate information knowing that it's being read than not having it at all. So by all means, whatever you can do to help your business give out, dare I say it again, specific, accurate, and complete information, the better.
Yep. Another popular question. I've got a couple of questions in here that are all relatively the same, so we'll just combine them. Can you go over discounting again, and specifically, can you go over discounting basic services? Because I remember seeing something about this not being okay.
Yeah, okay. So probably a bigger question. A matter of fact, Mandy, keep track of this. We're going to do expertise 15-minute just on the basic service fee. But in a nutshell, the basic service fee cannot ever be discounted, but there's a few specific things the FTC has said you can. Those are direct cremation, immediate burial, transfer, receiving remains. Those 4 services, you as a provider can have a lower basic service fee. Nowhere else can you do it. So if your basic service fee, again, making up numbers, is $5,000, all right, fine. If you have a package other than cremation, immediate burial, receiving or transferring of remains, if you have a package, say, traditional funeral, visitation, memorial, and it's say $4,500, by sheer numbers, that would be a violation, because if your basic service fee is $5,000, There's nothing you can offer as a package that can be lower than $5,000 unless it's one of those four that I mentioned. Automatic violation. And I've had people get caught for that.
Awesome. Well, we have a few other questions here. Is the FTC requiring our price list to be on our website now?
Not yet. That's still the big debate. We're waiting. Again, it's a whole topic for another call. But I tell people don't wait. And this is me as a business. Get prepared, be ready, meet it before it happens. I do believe it's coming. Here's the thing: even if the FTC doesn't force it, more and more providers are doing it, so you might as well be first to the race rather than last to the dance, or I don't know, some saying like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Let's do one more and then we can wrap it up. We can always send responses by email if we missed you. But there's been a couple of people asking the same question too. So we'll combine and ask.
Yeah.
So people asking about pricing for caskets. If they ask for a price for a casket that's not on the GPO, what can we tell them? And then, of course, when people ask about casket prices, there's a range of pricing. So how do we navigate that?
Yeah. So one of the things you'll first of all notice is that wasn't anything that the FTC shopped for, because I think they understand that that's a tougher, you know, question to be able to give. And the GPL allows us to give a range of pricing. So, the idea would be, again, general to specific. If somebody calls and says, I want to know how much your caskets are, you can start off with that broad range. Well, our caskets, and again, this is right off of your own price list, they range from, $100 to $10,000. Now, that's a lot of different caskets. Then you go and you try to get them specific. First of all, I'd be asking, well, why do you need a casket? Like, what kind of funeral are you thinking about? And then you do what you would do in arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like wood? Do you like metal? Do you love a good cloth covered? What's your taste? And then you go from there.
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, we will send responses to the remaining questions via email to make sure that you have all the information that you need to confidently handle FTC compliance, everyone's favorite thing. Thank you all for joining us today. And it was a pleasure to have you. Paul, thank you for your knowledge and expertise, and hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thanks everybody for attending, and we'll have another FTC update here soon, I promise.